Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamu alaikum. I hope all of you will be doing fine. Class, as we know that due to the COVID-19 situation, we have again shifted towards the online classes. So today we are going to discuss about the chapter number 7, which is the physical and chemical changes and processes. Now, come towards the review of the question number 1. First of all, we will go through the review of the question number 1, which is basically composed of short question answers and definitions. So, class, first of all, we are going to discuss about the types of changes. So, as we know that we have the two types of changes. The first one will be the physical change and the second one will be the chemical changes. Now, we are going through the difference between them. First of all, class, let us discuss the first point of difference between the physical change and the chemical change. So, what will happen in case of the physical change? The physical properties of the substance, they will be going to change. Just as you can see here, this is a pencil, and if we break a pencil into the two parts, then what is happening? Just the shape of the pencil, it will be going to change. So it is basically a physical change. Now come towards the chemical change. What is happening in case of chemical change? The chemical properties of the substance, they will be going to change. As you can see here, this is a wood, and we burn a wood, it will be converted into the ash. So what is happening? The chemical compositions will be going to change. Now come towards the next point of difference between the physical change and the chemical change is that in case of physical change, no new substance will be going to form. Beta, as you can see here, कि हमारे पास एक pencil थी, and when we break a pencil into the two parts, then this is still a pencil. This is not a new substance. Okay, so no new substance will be going to form in the physical change. But in the chemical changes, because the chemical composition of the substance is going to change, that's why new substances will be formed. For example, as we have discussed, that wood is converted into the ash, and ash is a new substance which is totally different from the wood. That's why new substances will be going to form in case of chemical changes. Now come towards the next difference, which is the physical changes are basically temporary in nature. It means they are not everlasting. That these changes, they last for a limited period of time. For example, as you can see here, this is a piece of butter. When we melt a butter, it will be converted into the liquid form. But when we put this liquid form into the room temperature, it will again convert it back into the butter. So these changes are temporary in nature. While in case of the chemical changes are basically permanent in nature. For example, as you can see here, if we are going to bake a cake, we mix different ingredients into it. We add the flour, baking powder, baking soda, sugar. Then the product will be the cake, which is totally different from the ingredients, and this cake, it can't be converted back into its ingredient. So that's why the chemical changes are basically permanent in nature. Now come towards the last point of difference between the physical change and the chemical change is that physical changes are basically reversible in nature, and we have discussed about the reversible changes. Reversible changes beta क्या होते हैं? These are basically those changes that can go both in the forward direction as well as in the backward direction. As you can see here, the ice can be converted into the water, and water also has the ability to convert it back into the ice. So it means that this reaction, it can undergo both in the forward direction as well as in the backward direction. That's why physical changes are basically what? These are the reversible changes. Now come towards the chemical changes. Chemical changes are basically irreversible in nature, and we know about the irreversible changes as those changes that cannot go back. Okay, those changes that cannot go back, these are basically irreversible changes. As you can see here, the liquid part of an egg, it can be converted into the solid form in on frying, but this solid form is unable to convert back into the liquid form. So it means the reaction it just undergoes in the forward direction, not in the backward direction. That's why the chemical changes are irreversible in nature. Now come towards the next thing, which is the applications of chemical changes, that where we are going to utilize these chemical changes. So let us discuss use of hydrocarbons as a fuel, that we can use the hydrocarbons as a fuel. So first of all, before going through the use of hydrocarbons as a fuel, we must know that what are basically hydrocarbons. So class, hydrocarbons are basically the compounds. These are the compounds that consist of the hydrogen and carbon atoms. So hydrocarbons, what are hydrocarbons? The compounds of hydrogen and carbon atom. And from where we can obtain these hydrocarbons? We can obtain these hydrocarbons from the crude oil. And what is basically crude oil? Crude oil is basically the impure form of the oil, or it is the unrefined form of the petroleum. It means crude oil, it contains the impurities, and we can use these hydrocarbons as a fuel in the form of petroleum, natural gas, or CNG, and this fuel we use to run our vehicles. Now come towards the next thing, which is the use of fertilizers in agriculture. So first of all, we will discuss about that what are basically fertilizers are. What are basically fertilizers are? Fertilizers are basically the substances that add minerals to the soil. Now we discuss that why we use fertilizers. We use the fertilizers to increase the fertility of the soil. For example, class, in case if we have a barren land, it means that it has a reduced fertility. So, to make the barren land fertile, we add the fertilizers in it to restore its fertility or to increase its fertility. Now, come towards the types of fertilizers. We have the two types of fertilizers. The first one will be the natural fertilizers, and the second one will be the chemical fertilizers. So as the name shows, natural fertilizers. What are basically natural fertilizers? Natural fertilizers are those fertilizers that we can derive from the nature. So manure is basically included in the natural fertilizer. What is basically manure? It is the waste material of animals and plants. Waste materials of animals and plants, it is known as the manure. And basically manure is rich in the nutrients. That's why we add the manure to the soil to increase the fertility of the soil. Now come towards the chemical fertilizers. Chemical fertilizers are basically prepared in the factories, and they are known as the NKP. So the basic element of the chemical fertilizers are nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus. And for nitrogen, K say potassium and P say phosphorus. So the basic elements of these are the nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus. Now come towards the physical properties of the fertilizers. That what should be the physical properties of the fertilizers that makes them best to use. So the particle size, it should be small. We should use the small sized particles. Why? Because the small sized particles, they will readily dissolve in water. That's why we prefer the small sized particles. And what should be the texture of the particles? The particles of the fertilizers, they should be hard. Why they should be hard? Because hard particles, they release their nutrients gradually into the soil. So the particle size should be small and the texture of the particle, it should be hard. Now come towards the improper use of the fertilizers. That if we are not using the fertilizers in a required amount, then it will have a harmful impact on our environment. How? Now let us discuss. For example, if we are using the fertilizers in excessive amount, then what will happen? Our soil did not absorb this fertilizers, and this fertilizer, they will drain into the water bodies, from where they will cause the water pollution. Okay, now come towards the next harmful impact of the improper use of fertilizer. It basically reduces our fossil fuels reserves. How? For example, class, in the factories, we use a large amount of the fossil fuels to manufacture the fertilizers. We use the coal, oil, and natural gas to manufacture these fertilizers. That's why the improper use of the fertilizer is reducing our fossil fuels reserves. Now come towards the hydrogenation. Hydrogenation class, it is a chemical process. It is a chemical process in which we are able to convert the vegetable oil into the banaspati ghee by the addition of hydrogen and in the presence of nickel. We are able to convert the vegetable oil into the banaspati ghee. And we know that vegetable oil is present in liquid state at a room temperature, while the banaspati ghee is present in solid state at a room temperature. And we are able to convert the vegetable oil into the banaspati ghee. As you can see here, this is a vegetable oil. When we add hydrogen in it and in the presence of the nickel, it is converted into the banaspati ghee. And now the question is that what is basically nickel? Nickel is basically a catalyst which can catalyze a chemical reaction, or it speeds up the chemical reaction. Now, the next definition is margarine. That what is basically margarine? Margarine class, it is basically a mixture. Mixture of which? It is a mixture of hydrogenated vegetable oil plus skimmed milk. Hydrogenated vegetable oil, when it will combine with the skimmed milk, it will produce a mixture. And this mixture is known as the margarine. Now, the question is that what is basically skimmed milk? Skimmed milk is basically that milk from which we have removed the cream. And some people, they use the margarine in place of butter. Now we are going to discuss our major topic, which is the plastics. Now we are going to discuss about the question number 2. So plastic class kya hai? Plastic is basically any material. What is plastic? It is any material that can be molded. Plastic is any material that can be molded into any form. It means plastics are any material that can be changed into any form. For example, on heating, we can convert the plastics into the different shapes. For example, as you can see here, the plastic chair, plastic combs, button, etc. Now, let us discuss the examples of plastics. So, we have the two examples of the plastics that have been discussed in your syllabus. The first one is the polyvinyl chloride. Polyvinyl chloride, it is also known as PVC. And basically, polyvinyl chloride is used in the manufacturing of the sanitary pipes, as you can see here, and you can see it in your homes. So basically, polyvinyl chloride is basically used in the manufacturing of sanitary pipes. Now come towards the polyethylene. Polyethylene is also an example of plastic, and we use the polyethylene in the manufacturing of plastics bags. We can make the plastic bags with the help of polyethylene. Now come towards the composition of the plastics, that how the plastics they can be made. So plastics are basically class, these are the large molecules. These are the large molecules. It means that they are made up of many smaller molecules. And these smaller molecules, these are known as the monomers. So it means that when many monomers or small molecules, they will combine together, it will form a large molecules or polymers. So plastic is also known as the polymers. It means it is a large molecule which is made up of many smaller molecules known as the monomer. Now come towards the example. For example, we have the ethene. Ethene is a monomer. So when many units of the ethene, they will join together, it will form a polythene. Polythene, which is a polymer. Now discuss the effect of plastics on environment. That what are the harmful effects that are causing by the plastics on our environment. So class, basically plastics are non-biodegradable. It means that the plastics are unable to decay in the environment. They do not have the ability to decompose into the environment. That's why they are causing pollution, because they do not have the ability to decay. That's why they are causing pollution in the form of land pollution and the water pollution. When these plastic made materials, they will go into the water bodies, what they will cause? They will cause the water pollution. Now come towards that what should be the right choice. That for example, class, if you are going for a shopping, for example, if you are going for a grocery shoppings, and if you have given the choice that which bag should you have to use, for example, if you have given the choice that you should use the plastic bag, paper bag, or cloth bags, so which bag should you prefer? Which bag should we have to prefer for use for shopping? We should prefer the cloth bags, because the cloth bags, it can be reused again and again. We can reuse the cloth bags again and again. And cloth bags, these are also biodegradable, while the plastic bags, these are non-biodegradable, and that's why they are causing the pollution. So we should choose those things that are environment friendly. So basically the cloth bags, they can be reused again and again. That's why we should prefer the cloth bags in place of the shopping or paper bag. Okay class, in case of any question, you can ask in the WhatsApp group. Okay, thank you. I hope you have enjoyed the lecture.